webinars that we are kicking off. We get loads of questions every week about how just basic features in ChatGPT work. And we thought that having a regular Wednesday webinar that runs to show you these things will be super helpful. And we are really looking forward to sharing some insights with you. Now, as it's the first one, we will have a small crew with us today, but we're going to kick off by just asking you a quick question, just to understand a little bit about your own usage of ChatGPT. So we'll just open up the poll now and give you a moment to answer a question. So the question is, what's the biggest challenge that you are facing with ChatGPT at work today? Is that you're not sure exactly what some of these features do? Is it that you are not sure what you're allowed to do in ChatGPT? Is it something else? So I'll just give you a couple of minutes or a couple of seconds to fill that out. Certainly for me, when I'm speaking with clients, it's a lot of, we just don't know what is beyond the basic ChatGPT. Okay, so we'll close that poll out. I think we've got a something else, but I'm not sure what the something else is, but we will come back to that in a moment. We will come back to that a little bit later on. So what are we going to run through in today's webinar? So firstly, we're going to cover off our main topic. So shared projects in ChatGPT. Going to show you what they are, when to use them, and a little bit of our lessons learned. Then we're going to get into a topic from the previous 7 days. As we have our weekly webinars, obviously there's loads going on with different model releases, there's different products, there's different features, there's different reports coming out. And so we'll spend 15 minutes just talking about a specific item, which is a new bit of research that came out last week. And then the bulk of these sessions is about live Q&A. I've got some questions to throw into the mix, but what we really want with these Wednesday webinars is an opportunity for you to bring your own questions, your own concerns or queries, and then we can dive into the platform and take a look at various things and answer your questions live as we go. So with that, let's dive into the core of today's webinar, which is shared projects in ChatGPT. So for the very first time, ChatGPT has moved from being single player mode, so it's just me in front of my laptop having a chat with ChatGPT, to a multiplayer mode where we can actually start to collaborate with other colleagues in our business. I'm actually going to just show you how to do this, and then I'll come back to the slide deck here. So let me switch across to my screen here. So this is your ChatGPT interface. You should be pretty familiar with this. And then on the left-hand side here, you've got projects. Now, it might be a bit smaller. You might need to click on the little dash here, and then you've got projects. And then we're going to hit new project. So a project is really a wrapper around a specific set of chats that you might be having around the same topic. So you could think about a bit of work that you're doing this week with some other people in your organization. You could think about something that you're working on over the coming days and weeks. So I'm just going to say this is, Acme client project that we're working on. And I can give it a nice color, and I can say, right, it's about this. And then I'm going to give it some project only memory. This is an important one because this means that only the memories that exist from within this project will be used in the conversations here. And then I'm going to create that project. So once you've set up your project, then you can do a couple of things. Firstly, you can add in some instructions. So what is that project going to be about? So here I might say this is a project for our client Acme. And then I'd provide more detail about who's going to be using it, maybe some background to Acme, maybe a bit of information about how we want this project to work. So we can add in our detailed instructions. The next thing that we can do is to add in some files. And so here we might add in some information about the proposal, about the brief that has come from the client. So that is setting up a project, and all so far, so good. That's exactly what you would have been able to do up until 2 weeks ago. But now you have this new share button. And when you hit on share, then you can start to add in individuals that are within your company. So this is if you're on the ChatGPT Business or ChatGPT Enterprise account, then you are able to search and find those individuals. So for example, if I type in Caitlin here, who's organizing today's webinar, then this is going to find that, and I'm able to add Caitlin into sharing this project. Now, when I do that, I can give Caitlin one of two sets of permissions. So I can allow Caitlin just to chat, which means that she cannot change the instructions and she cannot change the files that I've added to that project. Or I can allow Caitlin to edit, and we're truly collaborative here. And so we're working on it together, and she can edit those things. Another option is that you can share this to anyone in your organization. So this could be for anyone across the company. And having done that, you can then copy a link. And so you could share that link in Slack or Teams or an intranet. And it means that anyone can come in and chat with that project. So those are your sort of two main areas of sharing a new project with someone. So let me dive into one that I have already got. And here is an example project for the Wednesday webinars that we are on now. So here you'll see we've got some basic instructions. We're kicking off a series of Wednesday webinars. Each week we're going to have a 1-hour session. Excellent. You can see here that we've got a couple of files that we've added in, the Koala messaging framework and our positioning canvas. And so now I'm able to have a conversation with this project, just as I am here, having a nice conversation. Excellent. But what makes this different is that it's not only me that is in this project. Caitlin is also in this project. And here I can see that Caitlin has been asking about setting up Zoom webinar. And so this is an important distinction in that for the first time, I am able to see what someone else has chatted about in ChatGPT. And that comes with its pros and its cons, because we need to be considerate about that. So here I can see Caitlin's initial question. I can see ChatGPT is answering, and that's fantastic. What I can see down at the bottom here, this is a conversation between ChatGPT and Caitlin Porter. Responding will create a branch. So this is important. So let me demonstrate this. So this was just a question about, how can I set up a webinar in Zoom? So let's say my follow-on question is, what other webinar platforms might we consider? And what you're going to see now is that this has branched that chat, branched from set up Zoom webinar. So this is now a different chat to the original one that Caitlin started. And now this is important because it means you're not in kind of a true WhatsApp style or Google Doc style where we're all collaborating in exactly the same chat and the same thread. We're actually branching off and going in a different direction. So if I come back here, we can see that we've got some that are branches where we have taken one chat and gone off in a different direction. So that is shared projects, pretty easy to set up and to use. So I'll just come back here. So as we saw there, when you create a project, you've now got a share button up at the top. So you can click that and share with other people in your organization. Once you've shared that project, you can then name people individually and share it with them or across your entire company. You can pick the permissions for each person that you're sharing that project with, and you can branch chats, so you can take them in different directions and explore different ideas and concepts. I really see this as being the start of much broader collaboration in ChatGPT, and I'd expect to see threading and messaging and chatting almost like you are in a WhatsApp group in coming releases. So a couple of lessons learned that we've found as we've been going through using this. So just as a reminder, shared visibility. So this is the first time that someone else can see your chats in ChatGPT. Now, why would that be potentially a concern? Well, one of the things I love using ChatGPT for is asking the stupid questions that I might be too embarrassed to ask someone else about. And so now you might think, well, if I've got my Wednesday webinars project, I might be a bit too embarrassed to ask about, what's an alternative to Zoom, or how do you set up Zoom webinar? And I think this is really a cultural topic for companies, that actually, no, we sit in a meeting around each other, around a table together, and we're happy asking questions. We go into a Google Doc or a Microsoft Word shared document and we ask questions. We should have the confidence to ask those questions, because often other people were wanting to ask them anyway. They were just a bit nervous to ask. Second thing to remember is that you saw a minute ago that when I set up the project, I put in project memory. The default, once you share a project, is that only the people that are in that project, it will only use the memory of those chats. So if you've set up another project, or you've been having another chat about another topic, that memory will not come into your project. It will only use the discussions about Acme or Wednesday webinars. And the alternative is the truth as well. So anything that you discuss in a shared project, it will never be used as memory outside. So really, really powerful for containing the memory of the project's chats. It's important to know that when you add other people into a project, they have got the ability to download any project files just as you can as the owner, the editor of that project. So you want to be careful or just considerate about the files that you're loading up into a project, that they're not sharing personal or private information. And then finally, as we talked about there, branching chats. It's not true collaboration yet, but it's really allowing you to explore different thoughts and different tracks on someone's previous conversation. So let's think about this in a business context. Like, how might you use shared projects? Well, I think about go-to-market teams. In any business that I've worked alongside, you've got marketing, you've got sales, you might have customer success, you might have product teams, you might have a senior executive that is helping to negotiate a particular deal. A lot of that is happening at the moment in Slack channels, Teams channels, maybe on email. It's lost in how things are being communicated. So now imagine that as an account executive, you set up a shared project for an account, and you load it up with all of the information about the client, about the proposal, about the products and the licenses that you're selling to them, and that you're all able to chat. How great for other people to prepare for an upcoming meeting by having that context. Think about senior leadership in the organization that are contemplating a potential merger or acquisition. No doubt there is some kind of deal room in SharePoint or Google Drive, and all of the documents are there. And then what's happening today? People are taking these documents out, they're putting them into their own ChatGPT project and having a conversation about it. So now we can bring everyone together. The owner of that project can provide the right files, the right instructions, and then as each of your leaders come in, they're able to have a very finely curated conversation about that acquisition. And then finally, think about your product teams. Anyone that is working on research and development, working on building out new products, pricing, packages, marketing campaigns. These are people that are working in teams today. And so think about bringing them together in a shared project is super valuable. So that is shared projects. I think you're going to find them super valuable if you're working in any kind of commercial or team situation. Now, if you've been using GPTs, and we're going to cover GPTs in a future webinar, then you might be thinking, well, what's the difference between a GPT and a shared project? When would I use one versus another? And it's a good question. Well, a shared project is really internal to your organization, and it really is around this collaboration for the first time. I want multiple people being able to use the same set of instructions and files, and we can collaborate and branch chats around that. A GPT is very similar in that you can share it with other people, but when you're using a GPT, you're very much in single player mode. Yes, you can use a GPT that someone else has created, but when you're chatting on your own. No one else can see your chats, and it's very much a single player. You can also share a GPT outside of your organization, which you cannot do with a project. So for a GPT, I think about packaging up an existing process, an existing policy, an existing document or template that you want to give other people the ability to chat to. And so that's where a GPT comes in. So that concludes the first section of the webinar. We're talking about shared projects, and we can talk about some questions about that later on. Next up, we've got a little section that we're calling AI in the news, and gives us an opportunity to talk about something that has popped up in the last 7 days. I work in the AI world 100% of the time, and I find it difficult keeping on top of everything that is happening. And so for anyone that is not in this world, it just feels like a relentless, ongoing wave of updates and news and releases, and it can feel difficult to keep on top of it. And so what we'll do each week is just pick out one thing that I think is going to be useful for you in this. And so this week, I want to focus on a new report that came out last week from Wharton, a division of the University of Pennsylvania, in which they have been running a report, a survey over the last 3 years, looking at enterprise adoption of AI. And this year, that survey included 800 people. These 800 people were senior executives at US companies. So we're talking about senior leaders in HR, finance, product, general management. So it's not just about IT people. And all of the companies that they surveyed were more than 1,000 employees or $50 million in revenue. So these are big organizations. And the report itself is about 90 slides. So we're going to give you the link to the full report, and you can get into the details of that afterwards. But there are 3 that really jumped out to me. So the first was about AI adoption in senior executives. So what you've got here is a question that was posed to these senior leaders. And the question was, what is your experience of using Gen AI for work purposes? And the options they were given were things like not at all, irregularly, monthly, weekly. And then what we're seeing here is the percentage of the responses for daily. So what's your experience of using Gen AI for work purposes? And what percentage was I use it daily? And if you look at the left-hand set of bars, you can see that the maroon color was 2023, the light blue 2024, and then the dark blue is 2025. And you can see how that is just going up. So it's now 46% of senior executives in these companies are saying they're using Gen AI daily in their work. And so this has really reached, full product market fit. People are using tools like ChatGPT every single day in their work, managing their team, speaking with customers, planning investments. The second chart that I thought was useful to highlight is the budgets and how those budgets are being spent on AI. Now, there are other slides in the report that go into the amount of these budgets and how they scale across different organizations, but they are big. And where are these budgets being spent? Well, what you can see here is the columns are the different sizes of companies. From the left-hand side, tier 3, these sort of 50 million to 250 million revenue companies, over to the right with the really large enterprise companies with more than 2 billion of revenue. Now, the rows show where they're spending their AI budgets, and the top two rows are spending on technology. So either new tech that they're buying in, AI tools, platforms, data, and workflow tools. And then the second row is existing technology. So this is buying in modules that they're adding on to Salesforce, to HubSpot, to other tools that they have got. Now, what I find interesting here is that those are the largest two, and you're talking about 40% of the budget is going on technology. What seems to be so much lower down, in fact, the fourth down on the list is employee training. So how do people actually use these tools is right down at the bottom with only sort of 16% average across these different organizations. And this is something that we're seeing in our client work, that successful AI adoption is not a technology project. It is a change enablement project. And the companies that are winning are the ones that have really figured out how to take their AI competency, the AI fluency of their individual employees along that journey. Here at Koala, we talk about lighting 1,000 little fires, and that is about getting every employee to be able to use these tools effectively. And then the third chart that I thought would be useful to show you is about the ROI that companies are seeing in their AI usage. Again, we'll look at the left-hand chart here because this is the total across all of the sizes of organizations. Up at the top in the light blue, you've got significantly positive ROI. And down at the bottom, you've got the sort of the negative, or it's too early to say, and we're still in our pilot phase. What's interesting to see here is that if you take the bottom two bars, so 12 and 3%, this is the negative ROI or too early to say. Well, you've got 15% there. So we can sort of discard that. That's the people that are saying this isn't working out for us, 15%. But fully 85% have either got sort of neutral ROI or the majority a positive ROI from all of their AI investments. And so for me, this is just saying, the question really is a moot point now. We don't really need to spend too much time worrying about the ROI and demonstrating this, because the people that are doing this are seeing a positive ROI. So if coming up with cost calculators and trying to come up with business cases, if you're using that as a reason to delay starting, I would use this chart to say, look, there's an 85% chance that whatever you do is going to show a positive ROI. So just push forwards. Okay, so that covers our AI in the news for last week. And now I'm going to dive into some live Q&A. Now, as this is the first of our Wednesday webinars, it may be that you have got some questions, in which case that's fantastic. Then you can either use the Q&A tab over on, you'll see it in your Zoom controls. You can put a question into the Q&A. Or you're very welcome to, and I would love it very much, if you can raise your hand and we can introduce you and you can speak your questions. But I'm predicting that we might not have any questions, and or you want to put them in the Q&A panel. So I've got a couple of questions that I'm going to dive through, which are common questions that come up in the projects that we're working on. And if, as I'm going through those, you feel that you've got a question that you want to ask, then feel free, and I will get to answer your question. So the first question that comes up a lot when we're running training programs is just about the different models. which model should I use when? So I'm just going to jump across into my ChatGPT here, and let me just go back to a normal chat. And so the point is, we've got ChatGPT 5 here, and ChatGPT 5 is the newer model that came out in August. Before that, you might have seen 4.0 there. And one of the great things about ChatGPT 5 coming out was that it introduced a thing called auto, which basically says, regardless of which model you choose, we're going to decide for you and point you in the different direction. So we'll either use one of the easier models like Instant, or we'll use one of the thinking models and spend some more time on it. So let me just explain what these three are. It would be easy to think that these are all the same thing, but they take a little bit more time. So ChatGPT 5, Instant, Thinking, and Pro, well, maybe they just one takes a little bit more time, but they're actually completely different models and they work in completely different ways. So let me pick them one by one and just show you what I mean by that. So if I go to Instant here and I ask, what is the population of the planet? Then it is going to do a very quick, might do a quick web search, which it is doing. And then it's going to come back with a almost instant answer. The estimated global human population is 8.2 billion people. So that is instant. And for so much of what we're working on in our work, this type of instant response is what we want. But let's think about another example where actually I'm trying to predict what the world population might be in 2050. Okay, I don't actually just want you to just come up with an answer. I want you to apply a bit of thinking to it. And so here I'm going to use ChatGPT 5 thinking. Can you help me to think through what the population of the planet is likely to be in 2050? So instead of coming back to me instantly, it's now using its thinking mode. And if I click on this, it will show us a little bit about what it is thinking. So, I'm going to project the world population. I'm going to go and do some searching. I'm going to go and have a look at a few different websites. Now I've got something that's come back from those websites. Now I'm going to go away again and do some more searching. Then it's going to come back again. And so this is what's called a reasoning model. It is not about just going and getting an immediate answer. It's about using some thinking power, a chain of thought to go through, much as a human would do. I'm going to go and research this website. Oh, now I've learned something more. I'm going to go in a different direction. And so here we are, 48 seconds that was. It looked at 30 different sources, and here we get an answer. 9.7 billion people, and we can reference back to the information where that was found from. So two totally different approaches there. That wasn't just one took a little bit longer. It did something completely differently. And now the third one goes up a level further. So now I'm going to go into Pro, and this is actually kind of a research type model. Hi, can you build me a report that shows me your thinking about how what the population would be in 2075? And so this goes up one level further. You can see we've got a new UI here where this is actually going to go off asynchronously and do some work for could be 10, 15, 20 minutes. So we won't get to see the actual output of that. But that goes on a completely different level and comes back with a very well researched and thought through report, which will almost come back as a PDF that you can share with others in your team. So you might be thinking, well, that's a bit complicated, Charlie. Now I've got to figure out which one do I use when. And that's what the situation was before GPT-5 came out. So for most people, in most scenarios, just leaving it on auto is going to be absolutely fine for you. And ChatGPT will decide which model to use when. But I would encourage you, if you know that you're working on something that requires deeper thought, if you know that you're working on something that would require sort of iterative research and coming up with a report at the end of it, then I would manually choose one of these options and you'll get a better outcome. So that is on the different models. I can see a question in here. How do I know what customer details I can use with ChatGPT and which I can't? People have come from using a personal version of ChatGPT, or you can't use ChatGPT because it's going to train on your data. Well, when you're on a business or enterprise account, the default is that OpenAI will not train on your data. So I'll just point you down to the bottom here. We're in a demo account, but it is on a business account. ChatGPT can make mistakes. OpenAI doesn't use Demo Koala workspace data to train its models. So anything that I'm chatting about here is not used to train its models. Now, I'll add this link into the pod that we're going to share, but they provide a really good overview here of both ChatGPT Business and Enterprise and what is the security credentials. But the key thing is absolutely no training on your data when you're using business or enterprise. And that means that you can load up anything that you would be providing into Salesforce or HubSpot or into your SharePoint. It's an enterprise platform with SOC 2, ISO 27001. And for anyone that's in a European country or the UK, then if you're an enterprise, then you can apply for European data residency as well, which will give you even greater levels of protection. So if you've got IT or InfoSec people who are nervous about ChatGPT, then this is exactly the right place to point them to. And then the other question that I get a lot is about connectors. So how do I give ChatGPT access to all of the systems and tools that I use? And so if I go back to a chat here, then when you click the plus button, you are going to see the ability to access different types of connectors. If I'm doing a deep research here, I'm able to connect to things like SharePoint. I'm able to connect to things like Google Drive, like HubSpot, like Canva, Box, Dropbox, all of these other systems. And this makes my conversations in ChatGPT really, really specific because suddenly now this is becoming a hub that we can come to and we can chat about our week coming up. So what kind of connectors have we got access to? So there's a couple of types of connectors, and this may be a conversation more for your IT team because this is the admin interface rather than what you would see as an individual user. But we have synced connectors here. And so because here at Koala we use Google Drive is the synced connector, but you would see something like SharePoint if you're on Microsoft. And the benefit of a synced connector is that it is always running in the background. So it is syncing all of that knowledge that you have in your Google Drive or your SharePoint into ChatGPT, but respecting all of the security and access rights of those documents. So if a document is locked down for only me to see, then only I would be able to find it in ChatGPT. And then you have some individual connectors that need to be enabled by the admin, but once they're enabled by the admin, then they're available for each of your employees to be able to turn on. And you can see this list is building out significantly. We've got things like GitHub, which is great for your product development teams. Gmail, Google Docs and Drive, if you're in the Google suite. Loads of Microsoft ones here, Microsoft OneDrive, Calendar, Teams, Slack just got launched the other day. And so suddenly you see that this is becoming a real hub for all of your conversations in ChatGPT. So once again, if you've got IT teams that are pushing, if it's the Google domain, we have to use Gemini because it's got the integrations into Gmail and Docs, or in the Copilot domain, we've got to use Copilot because it's integrated with SharePoint. Then very much these connections are countering that point. So with that, I'll just bring back my screen here. That brings us to the end of our Q&A, and thank you for the questions there. I'm going to open up another poll quickly now, which is to ask the types of topics that you would love us to cover in a future Wednesday webinar. The goal of these webinars, as I said, is we're going to run them every Wednesday at a consistent time, and just to cover one important feature, one useful technique, so that we can really help people to use ChatGPT in a better way. So if you want to take a moment just to suggest what would be useful for you here, and we'll now publish that response. You might be able to see that. And so we've got some people asking about privacy and security. ChatGPT Atlas, we've not talked about at all on today's session, but that is the new AI-powered browser from ChatGPT. So we will be covering that in a future session. So that is very helpful. Thank you very much. And we are going to share with you after this what I call a pod, and it's a tool called Trumpet, and it is going to contain everything that we have covered today. So it is going to include the session deck that we've gone through. It's going to include the recording once we have that. It is going to include a link to the Wharton report that we covered, and also a blog post that we've got about shared projects, which goes into the detail of how you can set those shared projects up. So if you take a snap of that QR code, then you'll be able to go in there. It'll just ask for your email address, and then you will be into that. We're going to keep updating that pod as each week continues. So you can share that pod with others in your organization as well if you think that they would find value in what is included in our weekly webinars. And with that, we come to the end of our first Wednesday webinar. Thank you very much for joining. Next week, we are going to be touching on custom GPTs, which we looked at a little bit earlier on. Custom GPT is a great way of packaging up processes, policies, document templates, anything that you want to give other people access to, both within your organization and outside of your organization. So thank you very much. Thanks for joining, and we will follow up shortly with the recording.